probably part of that at one time or another, are different than what we have today, because what we have today are not Democrats, these are new wave progressives. And we can talk about that a little bit later. And I have a pamphlet that was written back actually around 1920, 22, and I wish I had brought it with me, but if I can get a list of folks, I'll get this
Sure.
out to them.
Okay.
And it goes back to way back then, when the concern over the progressives taking over our country. And I'll share that with you. It's actually one of the relatives from my wife's family. But why I got into this, quite frankly, I was busy. I come from a background, and I told you, my dad was a parts picker in a General Motors warehouse. Moved up very quickly. They used to get paid by the piece. My dad could roller skate. And when the dealers would come into that warehouse, they'd give him a shopping list. Well, he could pick parts faster than a guy on foot. So he moved up very quickly. There was caused a stir in the warehouse, and his boss told the guys that were upset, hey, look, the problem isn't that Kelly can skate. The problem is that you can't. You better learn how to skate or live with a lower wage, which is America. Well, he moved up very quickly because of his aggressiveness. He went to the war, though, when the war broke out, because when it happened, it was a call to action for everybody. And he went to the war. He came back home after being a B-17, B-29 pilot. Came back, wanted to go in the airlines, but so did everybody else coming out of the service at that time. So he went back to work for General Motors. He thought he was going to get a white-collar job when he came back, because that's what his boss promised him. He said, you get your commission, you get through the war, you come back home, we'll move you into management. Well, he came back. There was no management job. And my dad kind of fought that for a while, but he had a wife and he had a baby, and he was living with my grandma, and so were all his brothers and their new wives and their kids. And it was time to get these Irish Catholics back out, get them working. So he went back to work in the factory, moved up quickly. In 1953, we got our first dealership. Now, the reason I tell you this is because it's not that his story is unique. It's that his story is the same story that all of us can relate to. It may not be the car industry. Maybe it's manufacturing. Maybe it's something altogether different, but it's the same story for all of us. And what really got me involved is, after all those years of building that business and worrying about it and staying up night and worrying about making payrolls, and you all know about this, I mean, the magic time for all of us is between 2 and 4 in the morning. You can be exhausted at night, just physically worn out. It could be a health concern with the family. It could be another problem somewhere in the family. It could be a money concern. It could be something happening in your business. I don't care how tired you are. Your brain will wake you up between 2 and 4. And my dad gave me good advice. He would say, you know what, keep a notepad on the stand by your bed, and 2 things will happen. Number 1, you'll think more clearly in the middle of the night. And number 2, once you write it down, your brain will let you go back to sleep, at least until daylight. And then you grab that pad in the morning, and you get your rear end out of bed, and you go and fix what you had come up with the night before. Now, imagine this, though, and this is after going through all this stuff. In 2000, I guess it was 2008, maybe 2009, I get a phone call from a guy named Brian Wench, who was our zone manager in Pittsburgh. And he says, hey, did you get our package in the mail? I said, yeah, I got it. He says, I need you to sign that and send it back. Now, what was the package? The package was a 39-page plan from the new General Motors. And what it said in it essentially was that I could be a Chevrolet dealer, I could no longer be a Cadillac dealer. Well, after 56 years of building something, I don't know that I was really very welcoming to the thought that we'll just go ahead and give up. So when I talked to Brian Wench, he said, you know what, Mike, you need to sign it and send it back. I sign it and send it back. He said, I'm not going to do that, Brian. He said, well, what are you going to do? I said, well, what are my options? He said, well, you can sign it and send it back. You can still be a Chevy guy, or you can go to arbitration. So I said, fine, I'll go to arbitration. And at that, he says, well, you know, I'm in Detroit. I got a lawyer sitting with me, and I'm recording this conversation. And he started to laugh, and he goes, now, Mike, let's be honest with each other. You, with your limited resources and 1 attorney against the United States government, you don't have a snowball's chance of hell of winning this. And I said, you know what? I got to tell you something, Brian. It took 56 years to build this. If you think you're going to destroy it in 5 minutes, you got another thought coming. I'm going to arbitration. Well, we went to arbitration, and long story short is we won, and we still have our dealership. Now, I got to tell you, every one of my friends that went through that same situation, if you didn't fight it, you know where they are today? They're without their franchise. I have Chrysler friends who are not only without their franchise, they've lost everything they worked for their whole life, and some of them committed suicide rather than facing their family and letting them think that they let them down. And so the reason I ran for Congress was pretty simple. I've got 4 children, and I have 5 grandchildren right now, and that absolutely is the best job I ever have. The job in Washington right now is nice, but it's not necessary for me. I have other things that I can do, and I love doing. But it's not an option, and it's not an option for any of us right now. We can't just be engaged from time to time. We just can't be slightly interested. We have to be totally committed to this. And I really do believe, after being there for 8 months, and after running for the office and getting out and meeting people in Northwest Pennsylvania, there's none of us that can look at what's going on right now and think that we can sit back and it's going to work itself out.